From our 7 Tasmania studios, your nightly news with Kim Miller begins now.
Good evening. First tonight, a woman has been charged with murder following a fatal alleged stabbing inside a central Hobart home last night. Nearby residents living in the social housing block have been left shaken.
Tucked away off a busy Hobart strip, investigators try to piece together a night of violence as residents remained unaware their small housing community had become the scene of a crime.
I heard a couple of little noises, but apart from that, no, I didn't think twice about it.
Police were called to the residence on Harrington Street shortly after 10 o'clock, where they arrived to find a 55-year-old man with stab wounds to his back.
Unfortunately, despite the best efforts and quite sustained efforts of Tas Ambulance, he was unable to be revived.
While the death came as a shock to neighbours, concerns have been brewing for some time.
There's just been too much police activity up that top end for it not to have happened eventually.
I've heard a few occasions up the road there where it's up the back units where they've had trouble from time to time.
There are some vulnerable community members within that complex, so we'll be in touch with the relevant agencies.
The alleged perpetrator is well known to the victim.
Well, they're all very closely, a close friendship, I guess. The female and the deceased male were previously in a relationship.
A 53-year-old woman and a 41-year-old man were arrested at the residence shortly after the incident. The male has since been released, while the female has been charged with murder and breaching a family violence order. The accused has been remanded in custody and will reappear in court in April. Grace Evans, 7 Tasmania News.
A man who allegedly murdered his ex-partner on Christmas Day has fronted the Hobart Magistrates Court again this morning. Darren Wake appeared via video link, but he is still to enter a plea. The 60-year-old has been remanded in custody to reappear on May 25th. Tasmania's top anti-corruption watchdog has been described as toothless and lacking the powers to investigate improper conduct within the public service. An independent think tank has found the state's Integrity Commission is one of the weakest in the nation and is losing public support.
A culture of secrecy and cover-ups has been exposed as part of a report investigating the inner workings of Tasmania's Integrity Commission.
Don't Tasmanians deserve the same level of integrity as other Australians when it comes to investigating matters of integrity?
In its 13 years of existence, the state's top watchdog has only made 2 referrals to the DPP. The independent think tank says there have been missed opportunities to investigate allegations of improper conduct within the public service, including the Adam Brooks scandal during the 2021 election campaign.
We referred the matter to the Integrity Commission and they said they couldn't investigate because of a loophole, which means that ministers of the Crown are not a public officer during an election campaign.
We've raised concerns about its jurisdiction and the fact that it sometimes doesn't have scope to investigate concerns that have been put to it because it doesn't have the powers.
The Premier told Parliament he's confident there is no evidence of systemic corruption in the state, but others argue without a proper watchdog, Tasmanians can't be sure that's the case.
It is absolutely a furphy that there isn't corruption in Tasmania. The government doesn't believe there's corruption because they're not looking for it. They're willing to cover it up.
The Australia Institute recommends the state government commit to all recommendations made by a 2016 review and allow for public hearings.
The Department of Justice and the Minister is taking on board all of those recommendations and will be responding to that as soon as convenient.
AINSLEY, KOCH, 7 Tasmania News.
Demand for short-stay beds in the Royal Hobart Hospital's ED has more than doubled during the pandemic, a parliamentary standing committee has heard. Director of the Royal's Emergency Department, Dr Emma Huckabee, told the committee up to 40 patients were presenting to the 16-bed short-stay unit on some occasions due to the pressures faced by COVID-19. The committee has recommended a 28-bed short-stay unit be constructed as part of the ED's Phase 1 expansion and have the capacity to operate as a pandemic response area if needed at a cost of almost $14 million. Tasmania's COVID cases remain high, with 1,167 new infections recorded in the past 24 hours. 5 people are in intensive care currently being treated for the virus. There are nearly 6,000 active cases in the state. Legendary coach ALASTAIR CLARKSON has backed in Hobart's proposed $750 million stadium, branding it important for our AFL ambitions. But the football great was less definitive on whether it will lead to less blockbuster matches being played in Launceston.
This is the ambitious, shiny centrepiece of Tasmania's AFL bid. The Regatta Point proposal given the tick from the government, the thumbs up from ALASTAIR CLARKSON.
This could be something really, really special.
And he hopes will prompt the stamp of approval from league bosses.
Having 2 high-quality stadiums in this state is a big determinant, I think, for the AFL to say yep.
With a retractable roof, ferry access and a restaurant precinct, Clarkson says the $750 million stadium makes sense, not only from a football point of view, but from an economic one too.
This is going to be state-of-the-art type of facility. This isn't going to be just great for football, this is going to be great for entertainment.
What this means for top-tier clashes at Utah's stadium remains less clear, while an even share of games between Launceston and Hobart is the preferred option.
We might not have any control over where the games, because at the end of the day the AFL schedule the games and who the opponents are of Tasmania at that point in time.
TASKFORCE colleague ERROL Stewart is defiant it won't spell the end of AFL in the north.
No, not at all. Not at all. I don't see that there's any risk of that at all.
The pair today embarked on a Tassie tour, meeting with leagues and clubs across the north and northwest to discuss some of the local challenges.
We've identified already that, we need to put some effort into improving grounds.
The health of the grassroots game a top priority in securing the league's 19th licence, which backers say looks less like a dream and more like reality.
We're really positive that we've got a really good chance. This is the best chance we've had in a long time.
Garth Burley, 7 Tasmania News.
A seafood dinner might cost a little more, with prices for Australian salmon, oysters and prawns expected to jump. Australia's fisheries and aquaculture sector is set to hit a 20-year high, with seafood exports reaching 56,000 tonnes.
We're growing at about 10% a year, which is significant compared to most other industries.
We have provided in excess of $1 billion of support to this industry to ensure that they can get their goods to market.
The sector is expected to be worth more than $3.5 billion by the end of this financial year. New data shows Tasmania's electric vehicle sales have risen 150% in a year, as buyers are enticed to go green with a raft of incentives. But there's a bottleneck for buyers, with the cars in short supply, as importers lament government red tape.
Pastor Jeff McKinnon says he's not much of a rev head, but he loves getting behind the wheel of his Nissan Leaf.
Particularly up hills, you can just drive away from other people without ever meaning to, which is quite nice.
He's part of a growing clan of electric car converts after purchasing the vehicle last year.
I speak out about climate change a lot, but I also have to take responsibility to do some things. And
with petrol prices spiralling out of control, it's as good a time as any to get away from gas guzzlers. In the last 6 months, Tasmanians have purchased 2.5 times as many electric vehicles as they did a year earlier, rising from 47 to 119. They now account for 1 in every 75 cars sold in the state, outpacing mainland Australia, where it's 1 in every 150. The state government is investing heavily in charging infrastructure, transitioning its fleet of cars and waiving the stamp duty for EVs. Advocates say those measures are accelerating Tasmania's electric takeover. So much so, importers can barely get their hands on enough to satisfy customers.
One of our main issues is we don't have adequate supply of electric vehicles here in Australia, and that's because we lack federal policies to really support uptake.
While the industry says the introduction of a parallel import system and emission standards would solve the availability crisis, there's some relief on the way, with import tariffs and caps being axed in July.
Which means we're going to have a lot more variety and choice of electric vehicles.
Josh Duggan, 7 Tasmania News.
And BRIDPORT may boast one of the most scenic football grounds in the country, but is at risk of going unused this winter. The coastal club is fighting to save its soul as a critical shortage of players reaches crunch time, just weeks out from the start of the season.
Perched above the popular tourist town with a Bass Strait backdrop, BRIDPORT should be one of the best places to play. But the Seagulls are suffering, having signed only half the number of players they need.
It is quite hard to recruit guys out this way, being a bit out of town.
The problem has been snowballing. BRIDPORT hasn't had junior teams for the past 5 years, and it's starting to bite as the committed core keeping the club alive starts to break up.
Our guys that had junior ties to the club are kind of getting to that age now where they're retiring, not playing footy.
The club's conundrum comes despite plenty of new homes popping up and sponsors and supporters galore, but that hasn't translated into more players wanting to strap on the boots.
I don't know if there's the amount of kids coming through like there used to be. And back in the day, I mean, footy was everything on a Saturday.
BRIDPORT is exploring all avenues to keep the club alive, even the option of fielding just a single senior team and scrapping its reserves. A meeting on Monday between coaches and players will determine the club's fate.
The people that come and support us each week, to lose that is a huge part of their lives.
A club which survived the demise of the old North East Football Union now has another fight for life in the NTFA. Tom Johnson, 7 Tasmania News.
A Tasmanian development is being labelled a game changer in the recruitment process of workers. The technology assesses a worker's health in more ways than one.
New software developed in Tasmania is set to revolutionise the pre-employment medical screening process for low-risk jobs.
It assesses an individual's personal health and medical related information and assesses it against the physical, environmental and other health risks of a job role.
Q-Screen is a groundbreaking 20-minute online test to replace the traditional physical checkup that employment candidates undergo before recruitment, allowing for quick results.
They see 2 human body map images. One is where risks are identified for the role, and the second are the individual or potential health concerns of that individual.
The software eliminates time and cost restraints using artificial intelligence and machine learning technology to guarantee workplace safety in more than 1,000 jobs.
Those low-risk roles may include administration, sales-based roles, financial services and banking.
With more than 850 staff, Huon Aquaculture is currently trialling the program for its in-office roles as well as employees returning to work after injury. The statewide company giving Q-Screen the tick of approval.
This really does speed that up, and it's a cost saving because we don't have to put potentially everybody through a full medical assessment.
After 2 years of engineering and grants from the Science and Industry Endowment Fund, professionals are finally celebrating the website's launch. BRIANNA, BOYLEN, 7 Tasmania News.
The longer Tasmania waits to enter the AFL competition, the better off the side will be, according to ALASTAIR CLARKSON. While the coaching great believes a new team could be ready for the 2027 season, he wants to see the Regatta Point Stadium and High Performance Centre prioritised first.
A longer run-up to it gives the franchise a much greater chance of having success.
He says the delayed timeline would also allow younger players to develop in the Pathways program. Trey and Taryn Armstrong's college basketball team has been knocked out of its final series. The Burney brothers were humbled as their California Baptist University was thrashed 35-65 by Sam Houston. Taryn Armstrong still led the charge, top scoring for his side with 11 points. And Stuart McSwain has now pulled out of the Indoor World Championships in Serbia. The King Islander failed to finish a 5,000 metre race on Tuesday, still feeling the effects of COVID months after he contracted the virus. He was undecided yesterday on whether to head to Europe, but he will now focus solely on his recovery.
Good evening. Hobart 20 degrees today, Launceston 22, while 19s were registered for Burney and Devonport. Temperatures range from -2 at Butler's Gorge to 23 at Smith and the High, Ouse 22, Lowhead 21 and King Island 20, Flinders Island, St Helens and Strawn 19 degrees, Grove and Friendly Beaches 18. Cloud persisted over the west, south and east today before pushing northwards later in the afternoon, but as you can see, fairly clear skies for most of the state. Coastal areas of Victoria, New South Wales and Queensland also had cloud cover. Thunderstorm activity over the far north. Tomorrow a similar pattern with the high pressure ridge dominant. A cold front is moving east over the Southern Ocean. Southwesterly winds at 10 to 20 knots, variable over the central north, swells at 2.5 metres. Straight into the forecast, Hobart partly cloudy tomorrow, 21 the maximum, 21 also for Huonville and Campania, bit of cloud but fine. 23 for Launceston, mostly sunny for Devonport, top of 20, 22 the high for Georgetown. Burnie 21 and sunny, partly cloudy for Strawn, 10 overnight, 19 tomorrow and 21 the top for Wynyard. St Helens partly cloudy and 20, 21 the high for Swansea and 20 the top for Port Arthur, fine and partly cloudy. UV has been sitting at 7 lately and that's the expectation tomorrow as well. On Saturday, fine apart from morning fog, mostly light winds and afternoon coastal sea breezes. Apart from a possible shower over the northeast, a fine sunny day expected for Sunday and a light shower over the east and northwest on the holiday Monday. Fairly warm again in Perth tomorrow, a sunny 27 in Adelaide, partly cloudy in Melbourne and Sydney. Showers and 27 in Brisbane, a storm at some stage for Darwin. And here we can see the current cloudy conditions around the state as news comes just to hand, Kim, that a former star of the Mount Lofty Football Club in South Australia is going to single-handedly save the Bridport Football Club. Our own Tom Johnson has signed up for 3 positions: utility midfield, goal sneaking forward and his favourite position left right out.
Dear poor Tom. I also heard he's going to have free selfies at the game for everyone that goes along. Tom, go for it. That is all your news for now. I'll be back later with updates. Good night.